What's up, y'all? Macism. Running a pretty early live stream for me. Only like going on 4 p.m. here in Cali. I believe the creator of Dead or Alive, Tomonobu Itagaki, passed away 3 or 4 days ago, and quite a few creators already did their, in memoriam of him. I'm sure some of my friends are like, man, why are you so late with this type of stream? Because I was the biggest DOA fanboy that most people knew in this area than, my close friends who know me. I would bring their games to their house and try to get them to play it, and then as soon as they saw the titties bouncing, they were like, nah, I'm good. But, yeah. Irony is, I'm not, live streaming off a PC, it's off a PS5, so I can't live stream my older games. I didn't feel like doing a video where I just ripped a bunch of video footage of all the DOA games online to do a tribute or anything like that. Didn't want to feel like putting in the time to do that. Even though I do got some editing equipment, I could do it if I wanted to, but a lot of other people have done it already. So I'm just going to do a basic live stream talking about my time with the DOA franchise, how I felt, what I think and felt about the creator Itagaki. I guess the DOA drama between me and Harada that you find out later that was a bunch of just hype that Itagaki created, but him and Harada were like buddies behind the scenes, because I always wondered why Harada never openly clapped back. He never openly clapped back except for those few times on a couple of live streams, where he tried to get his buddy back in the graces of Team Ninja. Harada never clapped back at Itagaki when Itagaki was talking a shitload of shit back in the early 2000s, especially after Dead or Alive 4 dropped. Like Dead or Alive 3 and Dead or Alive 4. And it was that sweet spot between, the sweet spot for DOA games was definitely between Dead or Alive 3's release and Dead or Alive Hardcore, which was a remaster of Dead or Alive 1 and 2 on the Xbox. That was the peak of DOA's, I guess, popularity at the time. Because like I said, Dead or Alive used to main stage Evo. At main stage Evo, I know when Dead or Alive 4 is released, Dead or Alive 4 was played on an esports show. What was it called? Competitive Gamers League back then. Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball was spotlighted and played on a few shows on G4. Dead or Alive was a part of video game lexicon for most of the early 2000s between, I would say, Dead or Alive 3 up until Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball 2 was like the peak of Dead or Alive's popularity in terms of just being known within the gaming sphere. As far as my experience with the series, my buddy, he dragged me to some remote part, I think Milpitas, California, to this one, I think it was like a import Japanese anime toy store. Yeah, they did have anime for all you newcomers. Anime been creeping to American stores ever since, I would have to say, the mid 90s when the anime wave hit. It was peak between, like, I would say 95 to around, 2000 was when it really started creeping here, when it really started, really invading. And yet you were still waiting, for your anime to reach stores like a good 2 or 3 years. Now you can get online, you can get anime episodes the day they debut in Japan, but back then you had to wait for your shit to get on VHS and DVD, which could take like a year or 2 years or 3 years after an anime has been released in Japan. But so my buddy, he brought me to this little arcade. They had and then they had the Dead or Alive cabinet. And once I saw that, my mind was blown. Because there was only a handful of video games, 2D and 3D, that had female characters with breast physics. And the only known character that popularized jiggle physics in video games is Mai Shiranui in the King of Fighter games, Fatal Fury and King of Fighters games. All this time we thought she was saying be bouncy, because when she did her ending pose, she would hop up and her boobs would jiggle. And then her boob jiggle animation in the King of Fighters games, them just mesmerizing 2D sprites. And she was pretty much she was the owner of that. She was the only character that really had it up until Capcom kind of changed their art direction. Okay, now I'm going through a whole history of jiggle physics and fighting games and video games, but the other character that popularized jiggle physics on the Capcom side, if my memory serves me correctly, I could be wrong, I would have to say that had very animated 2D sprites, is I would have to say Psylocke and X-Men Children of the Atom. That iconic pose. If you play the arcade or Saturn versions with the RAM cart, you got all the frames of animation. Even if you pick up the Marvel vs. Capcom collection, you would see what I'm talking about. Everything jiggles on Psylocke. It's so... And then you had, I think, what was her name? B. Orchid and Killer Instinct. There was a handful of other SNK fighting games with female characters with boob physics. I think another one that's notorious. What was it called? It was based off of, I don't know if the fighting game was based off a cheesy anime or the anime was based off the cheesy fighting game. But you had a lot of late 90s fighting games, 2D fighting games that had female characters with obvious jiggle physics, but pretty much Mai Shiranui pioneered it into the the fighting game, the video game lexicon. She was the standard. She set the standard for breast physics. But as far as 3D, I think B. Orchid and Killer Instinct. There was a handful of other games that had female characters. I think Jet Force Gemini and the N64. Their jiggle physics was kind of ridiculous. But Dead or Alive was the game that pretty much set the standard for 2D, breast physics in video games. It pretty much set the standard. And that was due to Itagaki. I remember he did an interview, talked about, he liked his fighting games. The 3 things he liked in life was sex, violence, and, gambling, rock and roll. He truly was I think before, I guess, Cliff Bleszinski, the guy who created, Gears of War and some other games, he was truly a video game developer that had some sort of viral celebrity status. He had a face as a video game, director at the time. There wasn't too many, because not too many were out in the open. He was an extrovert. He liked to be out. He liked to stand out. He liked to pop off. He was very outspoken as a creator. But when I first saw that first DOA cabinet, my mind was blown. I was like, oh my God. It was basically, because at the time I was playing like Fighters Mega Mix, I was playing a lot of 2D fighting games. You had Soul Blade. Actually, I think Soul Blade, does it predate Dead or Alive? I'll have to look. I think it might predate Dead or Alive. But, you know, Taki and her boot physics, very subtle, and her big super nipple areolas in the first, you know, Soul Blade game. But once I saw that, I knew what game I wanted for the rest of that year. And once I heard, I think it was in a video game magazine, that it was coming out on a Sega Saturn, because I lived in the Bay Area, California, and San Jose at the time. So I had access to get to these Japanese, you know, import stores. It's like, I know many people from other parts of the country, they didn't have the access as did. You know, I was a lucky individual to be exposed to a lot of this shit that a lot of people didn't really get exposed to until like between 05 to the 2010s. But I got exposed to it in the late 90s. Oh my God, this game looks so beautiful on the PS5. It looked good on the PS4, but it's been a while. I'm hella rusty, but I just need to get warmed up. But playing DOA games is like riding a bike for me. Once you learn, you don't unlearn. Oh, just fixing the up. Oh shit. Oh, nice. Beardy was coming back on my ass. But yeah, I got exposed to a lot of stuff in the early 2000s in California that a lot of people didn't. And so, when I saw that cabinet, I knew I wanted that game. I bought a Sega Saturn before just to get, you know, Children of the Atom, just to get my King of Fighter games, to get some of my Capcom fighters. Luckily I did, because if I would have stuck with the PlayStation, I would have got the crappier versions of that game. But I got a Saturn, on my RAM cards and everything. It was like the Sega Saturn was the ultimate 2D console. But when Dead or Alive came on there, I gladly paid the $69.95 for the import version. Shoot, I had it pre-ordered because that's how much I wanted it. One of the few games I pre-ordered, the dudes at the store, they were hella pricey as hell. They wanted me to pay the full price, like right before I even got the game. They were like, "Yeah, I'll pre-order for you, but you need to make that like that's $69.95 deposit, and when we get it, you pay the tax." I was like, oh, wow, okay. And I did. They called me. I got it. I played the shit out of that game for hours. I unlocked. It took me a while because I only got it for the female characters, but eventually, you know, I unlocked all the costumes for the male characters. I played on the hardest difficulty, played on Kumite mode. All the modes, just thoroughly went through Dead or Alive 1. Like, it was the only game on the planet I was smitten with that game. I was trying to preach the gospel of that game to other people, and sadly, many people were turned off of that game when I introduced it to people. You got to remember, this is the you know, late 90s. It's like, granted, people were exposed to a lot of stuff, but people weren't exposed to that kind of stuff in video games. You know, people were still loving and playing Mario. And this is before, you know, Sony PlayStation, you know, took over. You know, this was still new tech. People were not used to seeing this kind of stuff in their video games. Most people were still playing their Super NESs at this time. You know, most of the young people got their hands me downs from their older brothers and sisters of their NES or their Super NES or their Genesis. People were still playing their 2D machines. And so, yeah, DOA for me was just, oh, it was just the game. It was the fighting game series of all fighting game series. Just like, I didn't get a PlayStation until maybe around 1997. So I had my Sega Saturn for at least a couple of years before I got a PlayStation. And so I just started playing Tekken until like around, 98, 99 or so like that. Didn't play the Bloody Roar games until then, or some of the other games. And I did pick up DOA, the first game for the PlayStation. And that debuted two characters. Bass and Ayane. Those are their first appearance. Even though some people say Ayane, she was the training dummy in the first Dead or Alive, and they decided to make her a character. That's the whole urban legend of Ayane. She was the training dummy. Then they decided to make her a character, and you had to go through the game. You had to beat the game and do it a certain way in order to unlock her. And so, unlocked her, you have Bass. I would have to admit, like, the resolution was a lot better. The game wasn't as grainy. It has some more outfits. And DOA 1, the funny thing is, I did see it at a place called J&A Collectibles in downtown Stockton. And they had a sealed copy for $200. I'm like, good Lord. Granted, I know it's sealed, but $200? It's probably worth that now, with the passing of the creator gone. I gotta watch out. This chick is a mix-up master. And she knows how to much. Oh, that low gets you, and then she baits you into blocking and trying to holds. Yeah, that's that. Upper. What you gotta do with Lisa, well, La Mariposa, aka Lisa, you can't let her get her offense started. She's gonna take you to Mix-Up City. And then her running attacks, too. Yep. Axe, bitch. And so it's like, the PlayStation 1 version was a good game. That was the game that got quite a few people, especially people on the Sony to get into Dead or Alive. I don't know how the sales. I know with Itagaki, the arcade cabinet, the whole thing with Dead or Alive was called Dead or Alive. Was the fact that Tecmo was on its last legs as a company, and they put it on Itagaki to create an IP that ended up saving the company. It sold like 1 million arcade cabinets. And that's what saved the company, so to speak. It was Dead or Alive. It was the last shot. Throw punish. Oh, good block. It's going to do a follow-up. I don't know why they call this champion difficulty, because it's not very difficult. It's like Dead or Alive 4 on the basic difficulty is harder than this game. If I go back and play Dead or Alive 4 on the basic difficulty, it would probably give me more of a challenge than this game is right now. Because I remember people used to complain with Dead or Alive 4 when they first got it. Why is this game so hard? It was. Yeah, when you first powered up Dead or Alive 4, yeah, the computer whooped your ass. Yeah, this game is brain dead easy on the hardest difficulty. I think there's like 2 more difficulties after this one. I think you gotta unlock them. But yeah, so Dead or Alive 1 on PS1 was a good game. And so after that, there was that kind of a dry spell for a few years. I was playing it, and then Dead or Alive 2 got announced for the Dreamcast. And to be honest, Dead or Alive 2 was a good game, but I was disappointed. I was disappointed because it lacked so much content that the first game had. The cool thing about the first DOA 1 is beating the arcade mode over and over just to see what kind of crazy, scantily clad costume you would unlock for each of the characters. And Dead or Alive 2, I think, got rid of a lot of the costumes. It got rid of a lot of the costumes, and then they brought that back with Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore. Oh shit, she just my face. That bitch. And so I was disappointed with the vanilla version of Dead or Alive 2 on the Dreamcast. It played great, it looked great. That wasn't my issue. It was just lacking a lot of unlockables. And so that's what kind of killed, Dead or Alive 2 for me. I didn't play it a lot. I had, I think, Soul Calibur, but I played a lot of 2D fighting games on the Dreamcast at the time. Dead or Alive 2 didn't get a lot of play for me. It didn't. I believe I played the PS2 version of, I'm getting confused. Dead or Alive Hardcore Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore was the PS2 version of the game. When I referred to the remasters, that was Dead or Alive Ultimate, what came with Dead or Alive 1 and Dead or Alive remastered versions of Dead or Alive 1 and Dead or Alive 2. Well, I would say more Dead or Alive 2 than Dead or Alive 1. Dead or Alive 1 was more of a remaster, and Dead or Alive 2 was more kind of a remake. They took the graphical engine of Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball to redo or remake Dead or Alive 2 for Dead or Alive Ultimate on the original Xbox. Yeah, I went through that just undefeated. But again, Lei Feng's my main. She's my main character. She's the character that I would say I mastered a fighting style for her. I'm not the best with the character. There are better Lei Feng players than me. No doubt about that. But in terms of the way I play her, when I did put her through some paces in some tournaments, I won a few tournaments. I started a few tournaments. I did get a tiny bit of street cred from some local pros in the area at the time. Saying it's like, okay, yeah, you're pretty good. It's like you're pretty good to where I can't totally disrespect you and say you don't have any skills. I was pretty good. I wasn't good. I wasn't the best. I was pretty good. I can hold my own against anybody. So it's like, even online, I played against some of the best. Yeah, some of the best, they washed. I got washed. And those some of the best I took a round in a game on them. So I can say that I was pretty good with Lei Feng. She was the character I've been ride or die with since the first DOA, all the way up to, as you can see, Dead or Alive 6, and I just beasted through the freaking computer on the hardest difficulty. But like I said, modern day fighting games are easy. They're easy as fuck. If I was playing like Dead or Alive 4 on the hardest difficulty, that would probably take me, I would probably lose about 3 or 4 times against the AI. Because the AI was that brutal in terms of combos and predicting your next attack to counter your hits. But yeah, going back to Dead or Alive 2, didn't play it a lot. Oh my god, this didn't have my old save on it, so I gotta go through all the unlocked shit all over again. Dang, I only went up 2 player levels? That's it? And I played the highest difficulty? I did unlock a lot of titles and shit. Did unlock some costumes, but oh my god. Yeah. Dead or Alive 6 when it first dropped, like vanilla, DOA 6 was, ooh, it was a hot mess. The worst selling mainline DOA title, which is sad because in terms of gameplay, I know this will be a hot take, especially for those new people who came in on Dead or Alive 5, but for old heads like me, Dead or Alive 6 is a better playing game than Dead or Alive 5. It plays like DOA. Dead or Alive 5 played like Virtual Fighter with counter holds. That's why the Virtual Fighter characters work so well in it. But this game went back to playing like DOA. Let's try another character, why not? But I played a lot of Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore on the PS2, more so than the Dead or Alive 2 on the Dreamcast, just for the fact that Hardcore had a lot of costumes. It was a little bit more fine-tuned, even though the graphics wasn't as good as the Dreamcast version. It's like, I know it wasn't as smoothed out. There was a lot of jaggies and early, jaggy pixels in the early PS2 games. Yeah, there was a lot more memory and a lot more RAM in the PS2. But Dreamcast games looked a lot smoother. Like, that's subjective. Some people like their games jaggy as fuck. Me, nah, I like my games looking smooth, buttery smooth. But Hardcore introduced a lot of the unlockable costumes that weren't in Dead or Alive 2, vanilla Dead or Alive 2. And then in Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate is when they went ham with all the costumes, a ton of costumes. I think each of the ladies had about 12 to 16 costumes. In Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate, it had a few. I think it had a Tommy, who originally was in Dead or Alive 3. She wasn't in Dead or Alive 2, was she? She wasn't in Dead or Alive 2. No, she wasn't. I don't think she was. Was she? Let me think. Let me get my facts straight. No, I don't think Atomi was in Dead or Alive 2. She debuted in Dead or Alive 3. But of Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate, if you had a Dead or Alive 3 save on your hard drive, it would unlock Atomi as a playable character in Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate on the original Xbox, which was really, really cool. So jumping to Dead or Alive 3. Dead or Alive 3, since when I first got my original, Xbox, I was kind of ride or die with the Xbox, just for the facts I can use custom soundtracks in my games and shit. But because also just the whole online experience, you had your mic, you could talk to people. Yeah, you had to pay for it, but it was worth it. Because, man, that's how I got some bit of street cred in the FGC. I was playing a lot of, hard top-level players online, Capcom vs. SNK2. I tried playing Third Strike, even though I sucked at it. Dead or Alive 3 wasn't playable online. Man, if they had Marvel vs. Capcom 2 playable, oh, man. Nobody would care about the fucking... nobody would have cared about the PS2 version. The people back then had no problems taking their consoles to somebody else's house and playing their games. Yeah, I think there's 2 more difficulties after this one. Champ is too easy. I think they had an ultimate difficulty. I think I gotta unlock it. Because that was way too easy. And so, Dead or Alive 3 for me, I put in times, I put in hours. Dead or Alive 3 was good. It felt slow to me. For some reason, it felt slow. Granted, it could have been to the huge graphical overhaul the game got, the detail. I did like the inclusion of Atomi and Christy, into the roster. The roster was decent, even though the boss battle was cheesy as fuck. Didn't like the boss battle until you figured it out. The boss battle is really butt crack easy, but it's a pain in the ass until you had to figure it out. Until you figured it out. Dead or Alive 3 for me. There's a lot of people who love Dead or Alive 3. I liked it, but it was not my favorite Dead or Alive game. I think a lot of people liked it because I would have to say, in terms of gameplay, it was a bit slower. It was a bit methodical. It didn't punish you from getting counter hold as much, because 2 and 1, if you get countered, that's like 25 to like 35% of your life bar. Because you could run around just guessing right when people attack you. In Dead or Alive 3, I think Itagaki was like, okay, you know what? The damage on these counter holds is a little too much. So we are going to nerf that damage a bit to make these games a little bit more, play more like you can get your combos in. You can engage in more fisticuffs without, you being afraid to attack somebody. Which I got. I enjoy Dead or Alive 3. It's a good game. It's like I have no hate for it. I think that's a game that should get, in my opinion, that game should get a remake. It should get a remake, but put in, some of the new characters from 6. It should get a remake. Put in some of the new characters that came in 4 through 6. But it's basically like but have all the stages from just Dead or Alive 3. And just have some of the updated, gameplay. But, yeah, 3 was good. I enjoyed 3. It's been a while since I played 3. The stages in that game are probably some of the best stages in a Dead or Alive game. He had you falling down floating, like, landscapes and waterfalls and... fighting through buildings. It was like Itagaki, in terms of fighting games and fighting in an environment, he raised the game as far as 3D fighting game environments. He did. Anybody telling you otherwise is a hater and never really played Dead or Alive. Fighting games. Like I said, Dead or Alive has its haters. It do for dumb reasons. It's like, I get it. It's been a while since I played this game. Baki was like my second main when she dropped. It was like she was just a 50-50 annoying character. I forgot some of her basic shit. But oh my grab, that grab, boy, you can just it's coming. But it was hard to stop it. Dude, I'd shoot. This was the fastest character that I got. I don't know, I just picked her up one day and went online. I won like 20 straight matches. It was just ridiculous. And then I played against other people who were using her. They didn't. Like I said, I play old school DOA. And old school DOA is just mind games. It's mind games. That rock, paper, scissors DOA gameplay. I don't have to be a lab or a combo fucking master to whoop your ass. There we go. There's that grab. Comes after a punch. Yeah, that grab has so much fucking range. It's ridiculous. It's like you would have to know the person's about to do it before you yeah, these pokes, man. These pokes. Look at this grab. Oh. Tamaki, boy. Too bad she's locked behind a DLC player wall. I would love to have a game with her on disc. It's like you're gonna have to preserving or backing up your hard drive data for your games, people, so you can have just,
are you here to take me out?
For game preservation purposes. Because as soon as your console die, your memory die, you use your password, for your shit, you're fucked. Ugh. Too bad that damage scaling kind of nerfs her potential, but her mix-up game is just pain in the ass. Bayman's mix-up game is just as deadly, but I used to fight this dude called Rakuto. He was like probably the best Bayman player. Bayman you would ever face in any DOA game. I think he won like a DOA, I don't know if he won a DOA 6 tournament, but he was one of the last old heads that would hold his own against Sonic Fox and what's that other dude, Excalibur Bays against the young players in this game. The young cats were whooping our ass. Dead or Alive 5 and Dead or Alive 6, especially Sonic Fox. People forget Sonic Fox was like one of the top DOA players. He was also a pretty good Soul Calibur player as well. But yeah, he was smooth. But Rakuto, he was probably the first like quote unquote pro DOA player I faced. That was a Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate. I got like a round on him and he just beasted on me. It's like we ran some sets, but oh my god, his mind games and his mix-ups was just and he was using Jan Lee at the time. It's like Diego in this game, he's pretty good. There's only a couple of people who has pretty mean Diegos. I don't think nobody won a tournament with him though. Yeah, the DOA is all about mixing up. There's that no grab. Been a while. It's like I said, Itagaki, he made these games. He wanted a fighting game. He wanted to play. You know, he wasn't about, you know, just, you know, stagnant, I punch, you block kind of offense. You know, kind of like what Virtua Fighter was early on. Virtua Fighter 2 is still a solid game to this day, but, you know, he wanted a little more excitement in his fighting games. You know, he just didn't want to, and then with Tekken, you know, if you just knew what buttons did what, you know, and priority and safety and all that other shit, you know, Itagaki, he was about that. He was like, I want to make fighting games, you know, that I want to play where everything you do is a gamble, just like in real life. You know, you can't just beast on someone without no repercussions. Oh shit! Oh my shit! Oh, Corporal's going ham. Yeah, probably one of the best Corporal players was this dude called Electrified Man back in the day. Yeah, they called him E-Man. I played him a couple of times. I could never deal with his pressure with Kokoro. I was just happy one day to get a round on him. And I had to let him know. I was like, I had to say, I got a round to your ass. He was like, you know, I'm petty. I said, yeah, I don't care. I said, let me have this. Let me have this minor victory. I said, I have never beaten you. Never beaten him. Never took the game on E-Man. His Kokoro was that fucking brutal. But yeah, see, Brad Wong, he debuted in Dead or Alive 3. This dude, this middle-aged this guy, if you let his offense get started, he's like Lisa. You can't let these fuckers get started. There's that throw. That grab will save your ass. But yeah, Tamaki. But yeah, Brad won this dude. He debuted in Dead or Alive 3. He wasn't very useful. It was funny. There was one dude, I forgot his name. He was a Dead or Alive player, a top player. You know what? I wouldn't say he was a top player. I would say he was a really good player at a certain point. He was manning this guy Brad. Oh my god, his mix-ups, his setups are insane. Oh, he got out of there. Good throw. If you want to counter Tamaki's shenanigans, use Brad. Because Brad trips up. Yeah, that's sidestep. If you want to counter Tamaki's gameplay, use Brad, but Brad is not a really good in-your-face character. He's more of a good mid-range attacker. You know, he needs space to get his offense started, but once his offense gets started, it's hard for him to get him off you. Oh, Tina.
Looks like this might be a fun fight.
But yeah, Dead or Alive 3 was a solid game. Wasn't my favorite Dead or Alive. Now, the next game was probably my most played Dead or Alive game in terms of hours. Hours spent playing the game as a whole. That includes offline and online. And that was Dead or Alive 4. She's ducking all my shit. She's trying to grab. Should have done that. Dead or Alive 4 for me was during that time where I was fully invested in being a part of the FGC, not just in DOA. A lot of it was DOA. But as far as playing fighting games as a whole, it was just that era. I was playing Dead or Alive 4. I was playing Virtua Fighter 5. I was playing Soul Calibur 4. I was playing King of Fighters. What was I playing? King of Fighter game was online. I forgot what this one was. I don't think no King of Fighter game was online at the time. But I think Mark of the Wolves was playable online. I was playing Capcom vs. Hey, I was playing a lot of the fighting games that you could play online. I was playing online. Even Mortal Kombat, Armageddon, Deception, those games online. I was fully invested into the FGC as a competitive player when Dead or Alive 4 drops. It's like, granted, I think Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate came out before 4, and I did put in a ton of hours in that. I got up to S rank in terms of my online ranking in that game. That's when I was just, I was getting really good at Dead or Alive, just playing the game. I was playing it religiously on Xbox Live. I mean, there wouldn't be a night or time of day where I wasn't playing Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate. You know, that's how I got introduced to Dead or Alive Central, which ended up being Free Step Dodge, like the home for the DOA community at the time. And yeah, Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate. Played that game religiously. All the unlockables in that game, which was cool about Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate, was the fact, I think if you got like, I don't know if you beat survival mode or something, or got far, or got 100 wins or something in survival mode, you would unlock the G4 interview that they had with Tomonobu Itagaki, where he gave the history and breakdown of the DOA franchise and stuff like that, which was a really cool Easter egg to unlock in the game. And it's like, I unlocked it. Too bad I can't live stream it, because, you know, Dead or Alive Ultimate is only on the original Xbox, and I don't have no Elgato or whatever to live stream that little interview that he did. But it gave you some insight on, you know, his thought process as far as the game. I also think that was the infamous interview where they asked him, you know, what game does he hate? He said Tekken 1, Tekken 2, Tekken 3, Tekken 4, Tekken 5. You know, where he just was being who he was, a character. You know, And Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate, if you beat, I think if you go through survival mode like 100, if you got a certain amount of points, you beat it up. Go through 100 opponents, you will unlock that video. No, I think you had to unlock all the costumes. Yeah, you had to unlock all the costumes. And there were certain costumes that you can only unlock by going through survival mode with certain characters. Wow, I got more points with Tamaki than I did Leifang. And so, that's how I got introduced to, a lot of the high-level players in the DOA community was through Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate. Played the shit out of that in the original Xbox Online. I got to see how toxic the FGC was early on. I just had a taste of it. Because the DOA community is not very big, but they did have a lot of shit talkers. Like Master, he still does stuff with DOA. He's on YouTube. He's probably the best, probably still is the best Ryu player. You know, Ryu Hayabusa, the ninja in Dead or Alive. He was on CGL. He dominated CGL until this one dude came along using Ein and took Master off his throne. I think him and Vanessa were dating. Vanessa was like the best female DOA player. She was using Hitomi at the time. And the thing that sucks about Dead or Alive 6 is the fact that it has a story mode. It's an ass-backwards story mode. But they won't let you live stream the story mode. You can't play the story mode on live stream through your console. You would get like a blank screen. It's like they cop blocked. You know what? Let me try this chick that debuted in this game. What's this chick's name? What is this chick's name? What's this chick's name? Nico. They introduced her. She was busted when the game first came out. She was so busted that you had to mirror match her in order to beat her. You had to match up Nico with Nico because she had a few like uncounterable setups where if you did it, there was no way your opponent could stop it from happening, and the damage was just ridiculous. Yeah, she did get nerfed eventually, but she was still, even with the nerfs, she was still a decent character, but at least with her nerfs, it kind of balanced out the roster a bit. But yeah, Dead or Alive Ultimate 2 have a lot of fond memories. I still had a social life back then. So I played it a lot, but I still had a social life. I was still out and about doing my things. So that's why Dead or Alive 4 ended up having more time spent, because I became more of a gamer when Dead or Alive 4 dropped. I don't know how to use this chick, so I'm just going to be mashing. It's like Dead or Alive is probably the best game for beginner fighting game players to get into as far as 3D fighters, because it is the most match-friendly fighting game you could ever play. You can actually frustrate people online just matching. Now, playing against people who know what the hell they're doing, you're going to get waxed. But against other beginners and mashers, you're going to have fun. I can't say that about any other like 3D fighting game. Tekken, you will get washed because the basic level to play Tekken is so high. You know, you gotta know what you're doing to play Tekken, even at a beginner level. Soul Blade, Soul Edge, Soul Calibur. It's a little easier to play than Tekken. Virtua Fighter. I can't speak for beginners. I can only speak for myself since I'm an intermediate player. I find it easy for me to just go online and beat randoms, but I can't say that. I've beat quite a few beginners, so maybe it is hard for beginners, because I can't say that I'm a good VF player. I am a okay VF player. Like I said, I'm intermediate. I'm not good. I'm just intermediate to where I can beat people at my skill level, and I can give people who are actually good a little bit of a hard time until they figure me out. Until they download what I'm doing, then I'll get washed. I'll get washed pretty quickly, pretty badly. But Dead or Alive 4, I think I also got S rank online. I put so much time in trying to get myself known in the DOA community online, which I shouldn't have done because, like I said, it's so toxic. There's so many shit talkers. And they wanted people to travel out of state just to play their ass. When you beat them online, they were like, oh, online don't count. Online don't count. You need to come down to Texas or wherever I'm at and play me face to face, and then you get washed. Remember, you know, I got into the FGC when I was like, late 20s, early 30s. And then I'm dealing with people who are like still in their early 20s and late teens. So it was like, you're dealing with childish levels of toxicity. It's like if you get into the 2K community right now, it's the type of toxicity you had in the FGC and the DOA community. You had that level just, what the fuck? Do you have a life? It's like, nah, I'm a teenager. I just go to school and play video games. So it's like, you know, their whole social life was absorbed. You know, their worth and their manhood was measured by how badly they beat you in a video game. Oh, Rachel's whooped my ass. Oh! If you want a blonde muscle mommy to whoop your ass. Rachel's fun, I ain't gonna lie. But she plays as like, they kind of cheesed Rachel because she plays kind of like the Halo character in Dead or Alive 4. Just chunky attacks. I think the only thing is Rachel has that gimmick where she can do that little pirouette in her throw mix-ups, her throw loops. Yeah, if she get her throw loop started on me, it'll be a wash. Then she can stomp on your ass. But a lot of her strikes are derived from that's bitch. But from the Halo character in Dead or Alive 4. But Dead or Alive 4 for me, yeah, played a lot of it. The game was so beautiful. Even to this day, if I hook up my 360 to my 2K television and set the little setting on there to like 1080p. Oh my god. Dead or Alive 4 even had, I think it was in 60 frames per second. To this day holds up visually as a fighting game. And yeah, that game was fast. It was challenging. Even when you played offline against the computer will whoop your ass. People were complaining or returning copies of Dead or Alive 4 because they're like, this game's too hard. I just thought that was hilarious. I was like, yeah, the challenge is there, but you loved it because it got you prepared for what you were going to have to deal with online. That's why I tell a lot of people, before you decide to go online, pick a character, lab offline, play the game a lot on the hardest difficulty, so you'll get your muscle memory for your defense, you know, learn about what's safe, what's not safe, and things like that. Because the older fighting games, they will teach you what you can and cannot do. And the computer cheats. So you had that as well. The computer would do shit that no human player can do. So that's why I tell people to play the computer on the hardest difficulty. That will prepare you to what kind of bullshit you will encounter online when playing real people. And I know the Street Fighter 6, I think level 8 difficulty is really, really good. I haven't tried it myself, but I've seen the pros go up against it and get waxed. Some pros will beat it, but it takes them a while. But yeah, Dead or Alive 4 was my game for years. It was the game of games. It was spotlighted on the CGL. It made Evo, main stage Evo. It was a part of the World Cyber Games, like the World Cyber Olympics. It was like the World Cyber Games was the Olympics for video games back in the early 2000s. Like I'm talking between like I think 02, 03, 06, around that time. and Ryu's going ham. Ooh, I used to hate that. Whenever I played Master, he would hit me with that fucking flippy kick bullshit. Or whenever I played Emery Reigns, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Emery Reigns. He has a channel on here. I played him a couple of times. Actually, quite a few times. Back in Dead or Alive 4, Dead or Alive 5, not so much 6. You know, he did some announcing for Dead or Alive. He played in some tournaments, stuff like that. He's a pretty good player. I would have to say, since I'm hella out of practice, I'm not about that DOA life anymore. He's better than me, but in my prime, me and him went back and forth. It was hard to say who was better. But, you know, now he's definitely a better DOA player, because I remember I placed him and yeah, I entered his lobby back when DOA 6 came out. I think I took one game on him, and then after that, it was a wrap. After that, it was a wrap. It was interesting, because me and him, we had difference of opinions, and we bumped heads at times over discussing DOA and shit like that. But you know, when I knew him, he was a young man. You know, when you're dealing with young people, you know, they're going to be, you know, they're going to have their opinions and feelings until they get enough life experience. Until they realize it's like, okay, I was wrong. I was just talking shit. Just talk shit. And you know, Emery's a good player. You know, especially when you play against his what's that dude's name? Hayate. His Hayate. Oh my god. It's like I used to thought this one player used to fight Hayate was a pain in the ass. No, his Hayate, Emery's Hayate is, oh my god, it's a problem. I'd rather deal with his Ryu than his Hayate. Because I faced enough Ryu to know what the fuck that I'm going to get. And then to use Ryu, you gotta use quite a bit of the shenanigans. But with Hayate, you know what's coming, but you can't stop it. You know, it's just like, it's no different than playing Ein when Hayate is Ein, when he just plays like he's using karate, like you're playing with a Tomy. Granted, their movesets are different now. They're similar, but they're different. So they are two different characters. But yeah, his Hayate, you know what's coming. I played him enough to know his setups or whatever, but it was still hard to stop. This fight is mine. No, now to go against fucking Leifang here. But yeah, Dead or Alive 4, that game I put in the most hours of any DOA game. Outside of one in Dead or Alive Ultimate. Dead or Alive Ultimate, I think I put in like around 800 hours. But Dead or Alive 4? Oh no, I put in thousands of hours. I was playing Dead or Alive 4 up until 5 came out. Since this is about Itagaki, he only worked on the first 4 Dead or Alive games. He worked on Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, I think Dead or Alive Extreme Beach 2, and I think he did Dead or Alive. He didn't actually. Team Ninja, this is where they butt heads, is when Tecmo decided to put Dead or Alive 2 on the PS2, because he made kind of a low-key agreement with Microsoft to just make Dead or Alive or Team Ninja games for the Xbox. But, you know, he works for Tecmo, and Tecmo had the final say. They were like, hold on, buddy, no, we're going to make a port of Dead or Alive 2 for the PS2. And back then, Sony had a rule. If you're going to port games to our console, they would have to be better than they were on the competitor's console. They would have to have some extra other shit. That's why Dead or Alive 2, Dead or Alive Hardcore, on the PS2 had all the extra costumes and some gameplay features and some extra shit that Dead or Alive 2 on the Dreamcast didn't say. Oh my god, this fucker's mixing me up. Oh, try to learn. Oh, that didn't kill. might cost me. That's bitch. Make this guy look, he's slow and chunky. Once his offense gets started, I remember Emery Range was using this guy for a hot minute. Emery Range was getting some wins with this fucker. I don't know how he did it, but like I said, most of the DOA play is mostly mind games. It's like if you win the psychological battle, you won like half the fight at that point. It's like your player could probably have like round-ending combos or whatever, but if you had them figuring out and knew how they initiated the offense or how they got the offense in, you won half the battle. And if you made them afraid to, if you baited them into blocking or countering all day, you won the fight. And so that's DOA as a whole. But DOA 4 was my jam. I think Itagaki also, I think he had a hand in doing Dead or Alive on the 3DS, which was basically like DOA 4.5. It was like an expansion to Dead or Alive 4. Had some other characters, had some cool features. It played just like Dead or Alive 4, just without the much prettier graphics. But for what it was, a handheld version of Dead or Alive, it was probably the best handheld version of Dead or Alive you could get. And I know they released Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. Well, a version of it, which I think was a version of Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball 2 on the PSP, which was interesting because people thought that a Dead or Alive game, especially Beach Volleyball, could never be on kind of a Sony console, let alone a handheld. And no, they made a playable, visually impressive version of Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball for the PSP. I owned it. I think that game is still hard to find. I think it might be up in value now. I felt bad when I traded it in when I had my PSP back in the day. But my PSP was collecting dust. I think I only had like 4 or 5 games for it. And I was just thinking, I was just using the PSP as another like multimedia like handheld just to watch the movies on, listen to some music to, play a few games. But the PSP library, it just didn't have enough games in it to warrant me keeping it or to investing in it at the time. Now, granted, since people can mod your shit, put emulators and stuff on it and all that other shit, it'll be nice to have a PSP. But to be honest, it would just collect dust. It would. I know they had some things where you can connect your PSP to your TV and play your PSP games on your TV, which you could do. You can even play online on your PSP, even though the Wi-Fi, whatever thing was kind of crappy. But there was a lot you can do with the PSP, which was pretty cool. But concerning Dead or Alive 5 or 6, it was 5 to me. Have a love-hate relationship. I spoke that a lot in my other live streams concerning DOA games. I have a love-hate relationship with Dead or Alive 5. I hated it early on. I didn't hate Dead or Alive 5 until its first major patch. Because it did some shit that kind of nerfed how I was playing Lei Feng at the time. It nerfed some aspects of Lei Feng that I was beasting. I won my first 36 matches online on Dead or Alive 5. I was beasting through people. I shot up from the bottom rank up to A rank in a week with Lei Feng. And then I was coasting. I was holding my own. I was playing against some top players, some pro players, going back and forth. And I think the highest rank I ever got to A+, because after a while, I just stopped playing ranked. I gained these group of buddies that I played with, and we just played in the lobby. Just all night, talking shit, getting some rounds in, so I stopped playing ranked. I stopped caring about ranked after a while. And plus, my Wi-Fi wasn't the best. I'm playing on the PS3. And, I stopped caring about playing ranked and stopped caring about being the best at that time. Because not that I didn't like Dead or Alive. I didn't like the changes to the gameplay it had. It nerfed the rock, paper, scissors aspect. It nerfed the damage of counter holds. It was a lot. It played more like Virtua Fighter 5. I mean, you're just pushing buttons and you're just trying to get the most damage possible. And it was about punishment. It wasn't about mind games. It was about punishing your opponent when they made mistakes. So it played more like a traditional 3D kind of fighting game along the lines of Virtua Fighter and Tekken. It played more like that. Dead or Alive 5 didn't play like a Dead or Alive game. It played like Virtua Fighter or a Tekken game in terms of how those 3D fighters plays, where it's about, I'm just going to beast you with combos, I'm going to force you into a mistake, and then I'm going to punish it. It was like the game should have been called POD, Punish or Die, instead of Dead or Alive. And plus, they gave the critical burst, which completely nullified the counter hold system. Because if they hit you with that, you couldn't use the counter hold at all. And why they did that is quite a few people in the high-level community were bitching and moaning about Dead or Alive 4 of how they put in all this work, trying to get you to crumple states and up against the wall, and they feel they can go to town and beast mode on you. And then, no, if you guess right, you can counter hold that shit, even if you're stunned, even if you're in a crumple state, even if you are hit up against the wall. You can counter hold the next attack. And that pissed off quite a few vocal high-level players. And then what happened was Team Ninja developers, they, like what a lot of people, a lot of companies do, they start to ask the opinion of the high-level players. They just pay attention to the high-level players at that point. And so they made the games a lot more about punishment, offensive pressure, and just high damaging combos. Why? Because that's how the MTC like their games. They like their games where it's all offense all day, every day, unless it's Tekken 8. Well, Tekken players, they know what Tekken is, and Tekken was never really an offensive mashy heavy type of experience. You had that fine line with Tekken of technical play and defense. If you mastered the technical play and the defense, you were solid in Tekken. You were solid in Tekken. The offense came later. It was like, okay, can you stop my shit first? Can you sidestep? Can you avoid all this button pressure? And once you did that, you were in a step in the right direction to be a good at Tekken. But Dead or Alive, no, it wasn't like that. It was about, we will get in each other's faces, we will push buttons, but at the same time, your goal is to mentally make your opponent uncomfortable. It was more of a mind game fighting game. It was a read and react mind game fighting game. But Dead or Alive 5, they got rid of it. Dead or Alive 6, which I'm playing right now, to me, is a good game. I didn't put in a lot of time into it. I put some time. But this was when I was not really playing fighting games competitively, not even in ranked. And then the buddies I used to play in Dead or Alive 5, they went on. They had real life shit to do. And most of them didn't get Dead or Alive 6. They decide I'm out. There was so much controversy before the release of Dead or Alive 6 that killed this game for a lot of people. For one, it was just bad marketing from the beginning. It was like people were hyped when they saw the trailer, but then when the director was talking about, they're going to nerf some of the fan serving aspects, not to expect as many, fan serving costumes. And then you saw like the first gameplay trailer, there was no jiggle physics on Elena. There's none of the female characters. And people are like, okay, what did you do to my DOA? Where's my boob physics? There's my costumes. It's like DOA. It's a fighting game that's akin to Smash Brothers, except Smash Brothers has a very large pool of competitive players, much larger than DOA. But the majority people who play Smash Brothers are filthy casual. They play the game for fun and for the characters and for the mashup. The same thing with Dead or Alive. You're playing it for the physical splendor, the action, the females, the booties, or if you're a female, you like the dudes. You always pick the dudes with their topless, like my friend. Like Sandra, she would pick Jan Lee always with his top off. So, Dead or Alive fan base I think it's almost equal ratio between male and female. People just think it's a Gooner game. It's like, well, shoot, almost half those Gooners are female. I would have to say the first female pro fighting game players I ever met and knew were in the Dead or Alive series. Before I knew there was any in Street Fighter, before there was never any in Tekken. The first, top level pro female players I knew played Dead or Alive. It's a fact. Dead or Alive, had that cheesy ass movie that came out. It was like when Itagaki was running the ship of Dead or Alive, they were selling, over 1 million copies per game. He brought swag to the series. He was the soul of the series. You had the Guns and the Guns N' Roses. What's the name of that legendary rock band? God damn it! They did that duet with Run DMC called "Rock This Way." Forgot their name. The Rolling Stones? Oh, it was the Rolling Stones. God damn it! I forgot the name of it. Aerosmith. Yeah, Aerosmith. He would always have Aerosmith do some Aerosmith songs in this game and stuff like that. Like I said, it was like Itagaki came off as a rock star, so he really emphasized the whole rock aspect in the soundtrack and the aesthetics of the DOA games. Especially beginning with DOA 3. His stamp was all over, pretty much the games. And as much as people consider the Tekken soundtrack iconics, the DOA soundtrack and music is iconic as well. A DOA track once you hear it. It had its own style, the way, it was. So, that's when we said, Itagaki, he was one of the OGs. He was one of the innovators of fighting games. He really was. And it's sad that because a lot of immaturity in the FGC concerning, attitudes of DOA never got fully appreciated. But at the same time, it did. Because when he left, the game never really sold as much. I think it took all 4 versions of Dead or Alive 5 and a whole bunch of DLC to make Dead or Alive 5 sell really well. But it went through 3 or 4 different versions. Dead or Alive 6 sold very, very poorly. It's the most poorest selling mainline DOA game. But 1, 2, 3, and 4 under Itagaki, sold millions of copies. This was his baby. He even admitted, this was his child. These were his creation. His creation saved the company from going bankrupt, from going out of business. I think that's why he was so arrogant and cocky. It was like Tecmo handed him the keys to the car and say, look, man, we're going to give you the money to make this game. And we just want to let you know that if it fails, the company's out of business, the guys are like, okay, thanks for your investment. Now let me cook. And he cooked, and he made a hit. And he made a hit that was an innovator for fighting games. Well, 3D fighting games. It's like, you didn't have you had some jiggle physics in Tekken 2 with Anna. She was the only character. It was very subtle. But in terms of the graphic fidelity, the graphic detail, the sex appeal, the way the stages are, to interact through the stages, how characters, fight through stages. You have different tiers of stages. He also was the first game that had a tag team, 2-on-2 fighting in a 3D fighting game. He brought so much innovation to fighting games, especially 3D fighting games. He left his mark on the industry, and not many people can say that. There's so many people who made fighting games. So many producers, so many people came before, and he made something that if you were to list the top 3 fighting games of all time with the top 3 series of fighting games, he would be up there. He would be up there. He would be up there with Tekken, Soul Calibur, and with Tekken and Soul Calibur. He would definitely be number 3 on that list. I'm sure some people would say Bloody Roar. Some people would say what other 3D fighting games are out there. Some people would say Mortal Kombat went 3D. Well, yeah, Mortal Kombat has some 3D games, but they still play like 2D games. They just had like a 3D environment, but they played more like a 2D game, not like a 3D game. So I can't count that. People say we were the first 3D fighting game to go online. It's like, no, you don't count. It was a 2D game just in a 3D space. Nah, I don't count. They don't count, my boy. It played like a 2D game. 3D fighting games have a whole different set of mechanics. Whole different set of mechanics. You know a 3D fighting game when you play it. And so, yeah, he would be up there. I would put Dead or Alive, if I were to list my top, if I were to put him in the ranking of just like 3D. Well, you have a top 4 already. You have Tekken. I would put VF. I was the one that started up VF. Tekken is the most successful 3D fighting franchise. And then I would say then Dead or Alive, and then Soul Calibur, Soul Edge, Soul Calibur series. Those are the top 4 of the 3D fighting games series available that made their mark, in terms of fighting games and video game lexicon of history. Because, man, Dead or Alive was all over the place in the early 2000s. It was like it always got headlines. It always would talk about whether good or bad. It was always on people's mind. People were aware of it. People knew what a Dead or Alive game is. The sad thing is like now, you can really find, well, actually, no, it's kind of a good thing. It's a good thing. You can really find a Dead or Alive game, like a used copy of a Dead or Alive 5 or 6 in stores now. Once in a while, I see it's like I work at GameStop. Once in a while, I will see a used copy of Dead or Alive 4 come in for the Xbox 360. But you will rarely see a Dead or Alive game traded in at a game store, at a GameStop. Even if I go to my local video game stores, mom and pops, it's like you will see Dead or Alive 3, but outside Dead or Alive 3, the other ones are hard to find. I think Dead or Alive 3 was the most selling Dead or Alive game because you can always find a copy of Dead or Alive 3 anywhere. I remember when they were selling Dead or Alive 3 for like 99 cents at GameStop because there was just so many copies of it. Dead or Alive 4 used to be common, and it got to the point when if we do get anything Dead or Alive that comes in, whether it's Extreme Beach Volleyball or the fighting game, somebody will buy it. It won't stay in the store that long. So that's a testament to just the quality of the series as a whole. The Dead or Alive series, Team Ninja, Itagaki, he created that team. As far as Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, that's what they're known for. Even though Team Ninja did Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 for the Nintendo Switch, and then they also did some work on the recent Dynasty Warrior games. I think that they're the ones who do the new character models for the Koei Dynasty Warrior games. Because remember, they're one company now, Koei Tecmo. But I think Team Ninja, they have another side team called G-Force or something, and they're the ones who do the development for the Samurai Warriors and the Dynasty Warriors or the Warriors of World Champions. But they are using basically like Team Ninja, like tech, as far as character models and animation for those games. But yeah, Itagaki, very outspoken director. He knew what he wanted. He was successful at it. He earned being arrogant and cocky, just like how Harada is now. I think Harada took a lot of Itagaki. He took a lot of aspects of Itagaki's personality. I think the only difference was even at the time, Itagaki, he was, before social media became regular, he did follow social media, but he was probably the first game director that I knew of where he beat to the beat of his own drum, just like Harada said, when he read his obituary for Itagaki. He did things his way. And so even when I remember when I forgot his name, I think it was Dr. Dog, he was like one of the vocal members of DOA Central and some other people, try to complain and vent to Itagaki about Dead or Alive 4 and how the gameplay is and how he should make it play the way they want it to play. And he was like, nah. He was like, no. He was like, no, this is my game. I made it how I want it to play. It's like you can choose to play it or not. I'm happy you're playing it, but I made the game specifically to play how it plays. It is what it is. You can take it or leave it. And so this made some vocal members of the high-level community back in the early 2000s, around DOA 4, hate Itagaki. They wanted him out. They were happy when he left. It was like they were members of the DOA community, high-level players who wanted Itagaki out from being a director. They wanted him out, and when he left, they were so happy. They were not realizing that they kind of signed the death warrant of the series, because when he left, the soul of the series died with it. And it's like, that's why I tell companies, I tell people, I said, man, you can't, it's like, it's good you take the feedback from a part of your player base that only makes up like maybe 15 to 20% of the player base, but you shouldn't take everything they say and apply it to your game. Because their whole thing is they play the game a certain way. They play the game based on X's and O's. That is how they enjoy the game. But if you're making a game to make money as a business, you cater to the majority of your fan base, which were the casuals. And I know right now there's something in the FGC. FGC is kind of getting mad that a lot of their games are getting casualized. But I'm like, I knew this was coming because I called it back then, because a lot of fighting games were tailored more to the FGC highly competitive mindset. Like the 2010s, that's how a lot of the games were tailored to the FGC to make these games for Evo and all this other shit. And so, but after a while, they're like, okay, we noticed these games are not selling as much as the games that we made catered to everyone. Games started taking out their survival modes, their team modes. They came more about the X's and O's. And so when the casuals went online, they just got the shit beat out of them. So to them, they were like, what's the point of me buying this game when I'm not going to even play it? Online is like, there's no fun. There's no single player content that I can sink my teeth into that make the $60 or $70 worthwhile in this game. So, but I knew the casualization of fighting games was going to return, because that's what fighting games were on console when they first started out. You had your arcade, you had your versus, you had your, before story modes came along, you just had versus, arcade, time attack, survival, and things like that. Then they started introducing story mode. What was the game that really made story mode what game was it? I would have to give it up to Mortal Kombat 9. Mortal Kombat 9 was the one that set the standard for story modes in fighting games. I would say that was the game that set the standard. I'm trying to think of a story mode before that. It was like games had arcade modes and they had cutscenes, but they never had a mode where it's like it's a story. You go through a story and you fight during the events, that become a part of the story. I think Mortal Kombat 9 was the fighting game that set the standard for story modes in modern fighting games. Before it was just arcade, you'll get some cutscenes or whatever while you play. Because Dead or Alive had that. It had that with 2, beginning with 2, where they would have, you go to your opponent, you'll have an introduction, have some little CG animation and stuff like that. But Mortal Kombat 9, they really set the standard for story modes in fighting games. But yeah, they put DOA Central as a shout out to DOA Central. that online website on here. Wardrobe. You had to buy these tickets separately to get some of the DLC. They started charging people for hair pieces, what really paid people off. You had to buy the character tickets. I don't think I have my save mode, but did I unlock some hairs for Christy? Let me see. Because you can set the hairstyle, but they had it to where you could set the color. I haven't unlocked their other hairstyles yet. But you can change the color of the hair. I probably might have to transfer that save over to this one. You can unlock glasses and some other shit. You have to buy that shit. As you can see, you gotta earn like the P. This was like the early thing where they started treating games as a service. Street Fighter V started it, and other games started to follow it. Okay, let me push X. Do I still have her ticket? Oh, I gotta unlock it because I did buy her black hair, but it's not on this save. Oh, I think I'm playing on my alternate account. That's why. Maybe if I go to my first account, I'll have all my shit unlocked. I'm not playing on my main account, so this is not my main account. Let's see. But man, yeah. Realized that a lot of people are getting older. You know, a lot of people are passing away. I didn't know Itagaki was sick. I think he died at 58. He always looked kind of like he was frail and skinny. You don't know what people... I'm sure you didn't hear a lot about his private life. Outside of the fact that the reason Team Ninja tried to get rid of him. I remember there was a sexual harassment allegation against him, which caused the company. I think the company just wanted him out. They wanted a reason to get him out the company, and so when that allegation didn't stick, I think Itagaki knew the writing was on the wall, and so I don't think it would have stuck, but just the shame of it, just the shame of the allegation got to the point where it kind of forced him to resign. Because I think he ended up resigning. I don't think he got fired. I think he ended up resigning. I'll have to look up the actual information. This is just me going by stuff I read, I heard back then. But I know there was a sexual harassment allegation. And then I know soon after, he ended up leaving, and then soon after I knew he sued the company for a lot of overtime pay he didn't get. And I think he won that case. But I think what happened was they wanted him out. They tried to find a reason to get him out. And the reason legally couldn't stick. Because I think if he would have fought it in court, he would have won. But just the fact that that kind of thing came out, and being who he is, it still damaged his reputation. To the point that even after he left Team Ninja, he started doing games again. Nobody else really wanted to work with him or produce his games anymore. And so, I think Team Ninja, Tecmo, they were like, okay, we're just going to give you a shit ton of hush money. And they gave him quite a bit of money, some hush money, to him to just leave away, quietly. He probably had to sign an NDA, because really he never really said anything negative about Tecmo after he left. He never really said anything too nasty about Tecmo after he left. So I think they paid him a huge chunk of hush money and had him sign an NDA after he left, because he never said really anything about Tecmo or Team Ninja. He offered some opinions on some of the later games. I think the last time I heard his opinion was I I don't think he liked. I don't think he liked Dead or Alive 5. He didn't like how it played. I think he offered a opinion on Dead or Alive 6, saying, he think Dead or Alive 6 is a good game. But he was not a fan of Dead or Alive 5. He felt he could have done Dead or Alive 5 a lot better. But as far as saying anything truly negative against Tecmo, no. I think they paid him enough hush money to where, like I said, he tried to develop some games. He had a good chunk of change to where I think he lived comfortably after he left. And he was still developing games. But he didn't have enough money to produce them himself and get them out. I think he had one called Devil's Third that actually came out, but it was panned and it was such a bad game that it became infamous for that reason. But now that game, if you find a copy, is worth hella money because that was the last directed and produced Tomonobu Itagaki game. So it's kind of, I think he went out, I remember, I think Harada basically, I think posted, his last words, talked about, Itagaki wrote that, he was in his final days and he loved what he did. He doesn't regret. I think the only thing he did regret was not having the last games he worked on available out for his fans to get. He do realize in his early life he talks some shit or whatever. But he said, he still was a winner at the end of the day, and he was. Not many people say they brought a company back from the brink of closing down, and made profitable games that made millions of companies that made the company like tens of millions of dollars, probably hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like, because the games were selling for like $50-$60 a piece, and you multiply that by millions of copies sold by how much the retail value was. It's like, yeah, you're making hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's I would say tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions. But he made the company money. He made the company synonymous. He made Tecmo synonymous with ninjas. Like Max Payne said, he was the head ninja. Like Ninja Gaiden 1 through, I don't know if he did 3. I know he did 1 and 2. And Ninja Gaiden Black, did very, very well. The Dead or Alive beach volleyball game sold very, very well. So he was successful. Harada, his issues with the Tekken franchise was just him, just shouting out his own game. It's like, what's one way to boost your own products is to tear down somebody else's, and that's what he did. But behind the scenes, he was like buddy with Harada. Like, I always wondered why Harada never really spoke. He never really clapped back at Itagaki when Itagaki talked a lot of shit. And it's like, that's why, because behind the scenes, Itagaki was like, hey, you're pretty good, man. It's like, maybe we should talk. We should chalk it up. We should be boys, They were rivals and boys at the same time. It pushed them to make better games. And it's like, that's how it is when you work in an industry that's highly competitive. Your job depends on you making a product, making it successful. And so it was great that Harada leaked out that information before Itagaki died. Otherwise, people would have just thought Itagaki as being this overall just Tekken hater, being arrogant and cocky. He was arrogant and cocky, but he earned it. He was successful at what he did, very successful at what he did. But as far as him being a hater, that was just a part of his outgoing persona. He made himself a persona. He made himself, a persona for the public. Shades, him drinking, being cool, acting like a rock star, acting all arrogant. That was his outside persona. And it worked. So I just want to say, rest in peace to Tomonobu Itagaki. Thanks for making these wonderful games. The only thing I'm sad about, because I told him, is there's been rumbling about Dead or Alive 7, Team Ninja making one. I'm like, man, Team Ninja, they need to bring him back. They should have brought him back, not as a director, but maybe as a consultant or an advisor. Just to have him attached to the project. Just to have him as an advisor, consultant, to say, okay, we need you to curate the soundtrack, would have been enough for me. It's like, curate the soundtrack, come in and advise, give us some do's and don'ts, what you like, what you dislike, what we should do, and that's all he needed to do. And I guarantee you, Dead or Alive 7 would have revitalized the series. Just to have his name attached to it would have sold another 300,000 copies. Now, granted, I don't think it would have been back to saying 1 million copies after the disaster, the PR disaster, not a game disaster. Dead or Alive 6 is a good game. It's a good Dead or Alive game. But the marketing and the PR of this game of Dead or Alive 6 was horrible. And when it launched, it came out in a very unfinished state. But when they finished it and completed what they wanted to do, Dead or Alive 6 is a good Dead or Alive game. But on launch day, it was a horrible hot mess. And the marketing and advertising for the game was horrible. It was so bad. It was so destructive. It was like, what are you guys doing? You guys do it to your game, man. Yeah, it was that bad. It was just one of those moments where you just had to face palm yourself. But it was the time a lot of companies were, especially the thing with Dead or Alive, the community, you have a very small vocal part who love the gameplay, but they don't like the aesthetics and the sex appeal of the game. And it's like, okay, why were you playing the game in the first place if that bothered you so much? It's like, Dead or Alive gameplay is good, but it ain't great to the point where you can just overlook the vibe and the aesthetics of the game. It's like, I can see a few players who are just so, they realize this is the only fighting game that I'm really, really good at, that I could possibly get a sponsorship and make money on. I can see there's probably like a handful of players like that, where they're just ass deep into the gameplay to where they feel they can make some money playing it. And so they can tolerate the aesthetics because they know I'm good at this game. I like the gameplay. But it's like, as far as the titties and all that, I could do without it. But it's like, that's a part of DOA. That's what makes DOA DOA. Without it, it's just a generic fucking Virtual Fighter clone with counter holds, to be honest. If you didn't have the, Itagaki's swag and the visual design and the sex appeal and the boot physics, it wouldn't be DOA. It wouldn't. That's a fact. I think a while it took Emery Reigns to agree with that. Before, he disagreed with it, but he realized a lot of the people who watch his content were, they disagreed with him on that. He had to be like, okay. Maybe I should scale back that opinion because I'm starting to get a lot of hate. For talking that way. It's like, bro, why are you even buying the game? And then the fact he always pick like Hayate and always have Hayate either topless or some shit. And it's like, I just played the ninjas because they look cool. It's like, okay, that's no different than me paying a female character because she's hot. What's the difference? So it's like after that, he stopped being on that I hate sexy train that quite a few vocal people in the DOA community were doing. Because they realized it's like the community of DOA, it's like the player base, I would have to say the player base is huge, but the high level community is very small. So it's like, if you want people to get into the high level community, you can't shit on the game for being what it is. You can't. You can't shit on the game for being what it is. It is what it is. And you have to love it. You either love it or you don't. And it's like, but if you gotta unify the community. You can't love the game and shit on it at the same time. You can't. And expect the community, you know, to be together as a community. You can't. That was the problem with DOA, especially when Dead or Alive, it was going through a weird identity crisis where they didn't know what direction they could take. Because in the 2010s, you know, mid-2010s, we were starting to get into that whole Me Too and, you know, that Me Too movement and, you know, believing women, and you had modern feminism take root. And so you had a lot of people on Twitter and social media just anti-sexy. You know, Anita Sarkeesian with her feminist frequency. And that started to infect the video game industry to the point they were afraid to put a woman in a sports brawl. They were afraid to give a woman D cups. They were afraid to give a woman jiggle physics. It was like, I get it, because, you know, times change. It's like, when jiggle physics first got introduced to video games, I would have to say 60% of video games where they had a female character had boob physics. It was like, it was everywhere. You couldn't avoid it. You know, a woman in a bikini or something. Early 2000s was like, I think from the late 90s to early 2000s, there's a lot of, some video games started creeping into that, especially the early 2000s. You know, when GTA started going to the more adult humor, some kind of lewd, you know, and crude type of humor. You know, you have BMX, Triple X, where you can make nude female bikers. You can unlock, like, actual cutscenes of strippers fully topless. I mean, you had titties everywhere. Like, titties was everywhere in the early 2000s, from 2003 up to probably around 08, 09. Yeah, sexy was in, and then around the 2010s, it just, you know, it just shifted. It did a hard pivot. I mean, I can understand if it slowly shifted. No, it was a hard pivot to the point, okay, to the point it was sus. It was very sus how the pivot was so hard. It was so forced that it was like, okay, I can understand if a trend slowly changes, but no, it was a hard change. And then you find out that our own government was like funding shit, funding a lot of shit to be censored, and paying companies like, okay, we'll pay you to put all this political and other shit in your game and to make your games not sexy. It's like, if you do this, we'll cut you a check. And we found that out, I think, early this year. And it's like, holy shit, I knew something like that shit was going on, because why would these companies do this shit? They're making these products in which they're losing money. Somebody must be giving them money to make this shit. And, you know, it turned out to be right. They were getting a check from our own government, our own federal government, to push, you know, social agendas and a form of censorship. They were getting paid. They were like, we will compensate you for your product failing. Just make sure you put this product out and market it as the best thing since Wonder Bread. And if people hate on it, just call them racist and all this other shit to get them triggered. So it was like, yeah, man, that was some government conspiracy shit that we just thought was conspiracy, but no, it's legit. The media doesn't talk about it that much, but the people know. The people know. And it's like, I didn't vote for Trump, but he's the one that kind of rooted it out. He was like, yeah. It's like, yeah. And it's like, that's why he's doing his best. I think he's doing a little too much. I know he's trying to do a hard pivot on it, on a lot of the damage that stuff happened, that caused in the 2010s, a lot of the social movements, the damage that happened as far as like American products and industry, and as far as Americans' place, how Americans viewed in the rest of the world. It hurt us a lot. But Donald Trump is doing shit that is just as bad too. It's like, these terrorists, why are you doing these terrorists for, man? It's like, you're fucking up the world economy. It's like you're hurting. It's like you're trying to stick it to all these other countries, but you're hurting us in the process. It's like, we're the ones that pretty much set the world economy, and now you're nerfing it. It's like, what the fuck? So it's like, yeah. it is what it is. Sorry to get all political, but all this shit goes hand in hand. Everything affects everything, and it's like that's why this game didn't sell that well was due to social politics. It was that, and then it had a really bad Evil Japan moment where what's his name, Tasty Steve and Mark Man try to come off like they were disgusted when they show footage of the Dead or Alive 6 panel, and they show like these two hella hot like Japanese bikini models with big boobs play the game, and then they were like using Bash to power bomb one of the girls where his face just ends up in the girls between the girls' legs, and they were just completely having fun and joking about it, you know. And then Markman and Tasty Steve were like, oh my god, this is so disgusting. It's like, we apologize for people who were watching. Like, what kind of bullshit is this, man? When did the FCC become a bunch of pussies? It was like, and then it was like, and then the creator, I think, what's his name? What's the Wizard Cooler or something, saying like, oh, we of evil don't condone this type of whatever. And then you found out not too soon after that, that guy was like, was duding, I hate to use that term, modern day term for being a perv, was perving on, you know, underage guys or whatever. And so then he resigned from fucking Evo. And then it's like, yeah, it was just like, oh my god, it was just so much bullshit and controversy. The 2010s, like from 2014, actually, you know, the whole decade of the 2010s, as far as social media and a lot of crazy shit that happened, was crazy. 2010s was a horrible decade, and the 2020s are not much better. And it's like, you're talking about a generation. A generation is about 15 or 20 years. You're talking about a generation that's almost up to like 20 years, 2 decades of bullshit. It was like, I admit, it was like the 80s were in, the 90s were great. The 90s was a great decade. It was like the 90s up until, I think, from the Berlin Wall to the fucking Cold War ended, we were at the peak. Like, America was at the peak of entertainment, sports, making money, everything. America was great. Not to say we didn't have any political or any drama. We did have a couple of wars in Iraq, Middle East, some other shit. But as far as the country doing well, we were at the peak of the planet, man. And everything. And then it's like that lasted up until the 2010s. So it lasted for like a good 20 years. Had a good generation, a good 2 decades of prosperity and peace. Really, it's like, yeah, we had those little things with Iraq and some whatever, the war on terrorism and some other shit, but the planet as a whole was relatively peaceful. But shoot, since like the 2010s, shoot, you know, on the brink of a world conflict ever since. So it's like, it's just things crazy. It's the sign of the times. But Dead or Alive, I believe it debuted for 1996 on the Sega Saturn. And I think Dead or Alive 6 came out, 2019? Yeah, I think it came out 2019. It made it up to 6 games. I do think they're going to whip out a 7th game. It'll take a while. They're probably developing it now. I think that would probably like be the biggest shocker. We'll find out, you know, after the game comes out. I wonder if Tecmo even gave, you know, even a public, you know, message, you know, in memoriam to Itagaki. Yeah, I haven't really looked into it to see if, you know, Tecmo or Team Ninja, you know, expressed any condolences or anything, you know, concerning them. I only see like content creators and people who really love fighting games, you know, talk about it. Who played Dead or Alive. But Yeah, he's one of the few fighting game, directors and innovators who's known, who gets talked about, because there's not many out of all the fighting games that get produced and released and put out. There's not many who's known of them, beloved or hated as much to have notoriety as Itagaki. It's like you have Harada, and I think you have what's his name. I think who worked on Street Fighter V, and then you have I think Ono, and he was hated for a while. He ended up, and then I know it's like the guy who did Virtua Fighter. I think Yu Suzuki. I think he only worked on the first 3. I don't know if he did 4. But yeah, most directors who work on fighting games don't get talked about. But then again, they don't work on so many. They get replaced by another guy in the next game, usually. But like I said, Itagaki, his hand was on at least majority of the projects. Majority of the projects, except for the last 3 or 4 Ninja Gaiden games, and the last 2 DOA fighting games. I don't think he had anything to do with Dead or Alive Extreme 3 or anything like that. So, but for majority of Team Ninja's tenure, he was the face of it. He was the orchestrator of it. He set the standard for that team and what they do. So for that, I give him props. May he rest in peace. Thank you. I thank him for all that he's done in the industry, for just making my young adult gaming experience what I will never forget. That would always treasure. It's like, not just as a gamer, but also as an artist. He kept sexy alive, man, and I do sexy fan art. So it's like, I would play his game and get inspired to draw another sexy female, whatever, or draw fan art of the DOA characters. So, that's what art does. It inspires other artists to create. Because video game making is a form of art. There was a lot of artists involved in working on this game, whether it was designing the characters themselves, whether it's designing the costumes, whether it's the 3D modelers, the animators, all of them were artists. So yeah, man, shout out to Itagaki. I will pour out some liquor for him, but don't have no liquor. Yeah, I'm probably going to end this live stream here. I just wanted to offer my 2 cents, do a little reminiscing about my experience with the DOA games. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about DOA Extreme, the first beach volleyball. I played the shit out of that too. I played the shit out of that religiously. Tried to get people to play it, but people didn't want to play it for reasons. Pity. That Extreme, yeah, I own pretty much all the Dead or Alive Extreme beach volleyball games, the fighting games. I think I own the first 2 Ninja Gaiden games we worked at. Oh yeah, I do have Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 and Razor's Edge. Don't really play them because they're hard as fuck. Just frustrate the fuck out of me. But I do own them. Like I said, I support Itagaki. I support Team Ninja. And yeah. For those of you guys who watch this live stream, thanks for watching. Offer some words in the comments if you want to. For those of you guys who watch later, you guys can do the same. I just wanted to take some time to offer my 2 cents on his passing and my experience with the Dead or Alive games. Because, hey, Shinigami, how you doing? Shinigami's in the chat. Yeah, did you know about Itagaki dying? I don't know, you just started really playing Dead or Alive. I don't know how far you go back. I know you and me played a lot of 6. I think we played 5 a couple of times. I don't know if we played 5 a couple of times. I know we played 6. But yeah, he didn't have his hand in this game, and Itagaki didn't direct this game. It was another guy. The guy who directed 6, he ended up doing work on Tekken 8, which was funny. He left. He left and just started working with Harada on Tekken 8. That's why you see a lot of stuff. You see a lot of DOA in Tekken 8. You do. You see a lot of DOA in Tekken 8. And it's like, but yeah, that's because they had the guy who used to work on DOA 6, he worked on Tekken 8. Yeah, so you only play only 6 with me. So yeah, Itagaki, he only did 1 through 4. He only did 1 through 4. I think he also worked on the 3DS Dead or Alive, like version of Dead or Alive 4. I think Dead or Alive Dimensions was like DOA 4.5. And then after 4, he was pretty much out the company, out of Tecmo. Oh yeah, did you get a PS5? Shinigami? Oh yeah, you did get a PS5. We played Tekken. That was a dumb question. You played Tekken 8 before. Yeah, you got a PS5. Yeah, you should play Dead or Alive 6 on the PS5, man. It looks really good. It looked good on PS4. But it looks a lot better on the PS5, especially on playing on a 2K television. It's like, wow, this game looked good, but it never looked this good. It looks really good. It's like I got an external hard drive to hold all the data from my PS4 games. So I just hook up the external hard drive to the PS5 and just put the disc in. Put my PS4 game, the PS4. I mean the PS5, so I can play my PS4 games on the PS5. But yeah, man, this game looks really good. It's been a while since I played it. I should have used like my old save, but I'm on my main account. Let me check something right quick. I think I'm on my main account. No, am I? I don't think so. I don't think I'm on my main account. Am I? I don't know. I have to check after the live stream. Yeah, it's good to see you doing good, man. Still around and kicking. It's like, I think me and Larry celebrated our birthdays over the past week or so. I think Larry's birthday was like maybe 4 or 5 days ago. My birthday was on the 13th. So we getting old, man. We getting old. Oh yeah, what you think about the new character in Tekken 8? They have this very cute, busty chick from I think she's a character from Madagascar. I think it was crazy. At first, it was going to cause a controversy because the first initial character design of the character, she looked like they just made her look like a white chick who with a tan. They were like, man, nah, you need to make her look more ethnic. So they made her look more ethnic. And I also like the fact that I think some people were mad about, like, I think some people posted a picture of Asuka and how she has, like, Tekken, all the female characters have these insanely broad shoulders. That's my like one huge nitpick with Tekken, like, female characters, is they all have hella broad shoulders. They have man shoulders. And it's like, it's always been like that since the first Tekken. I think that's just the 3D model rigging. It's always like that. It's always been that way, but it was even worse. It becomes even noticeable in the recent games since they're making the females a lot more prettier and trying to make them a little bit more feminine and sexier, but they still have these man shoulders. And so there was this YouTube channel that showed it, and it was like, okay, what the hell did you do to Asuka's character model? Because when she's in clothes, she looks fine, but when she's in a bikini and you see the broad-ass man shoulders and arms, you'd be like, what the hell? And so I think after that, I think they did a patch where they kind of made like certain female shoulders not as broad anymore. So I give shout out to social media and the fandom for that. And it's cool that Harada and the developers are taking a lot of the criticisms in the heart. But that's because they I don't know, people was like, Tekken 8's been shitted on for a while. Ever since that one patch where they made the game feel like DOA, where you just go in and 50-50 and push buttons all day. Damn, Toby's getting her ass kicked. I'm just watching the computer play right now. I'm not even playing. I'm just gonna watch the computer mode. Oh, the mix-ups. Ugh. Mina is whooping Hitomi's ass. Uh-oh, Hitomi's trying to come back. But yeah, man. This year, actually the past, yeah, this year has been a rough year for fighting games in general. It's like there's been so many controversies with fighting games. It's not even funny. And I think back in what early 2024, they were talking about a new fighting game revolution. It's like I called that bullshit out. Like I hated on people. Like you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like it's not no revolution, man. It's an evolution. I said these games are becoming more corporate. They're becoming more corporate. It's like, well, you guys wanted more pay. Okay, now you're getting it. I said, but the whole grassroots and FCC shenanigans of the FGC is going to get eliminated or nerfed once they go full corporate sponsorship and you guys getting paid money. I say, you guys are going to have to develop a code of conduct. Meaning all that toxic behavior is going to go away that was prevalent, in the early 2000s through the 2010s. All that toxic behavior is going to go bye-bye. Yeah, it's like, now I'm just a filthy casual. It's like I think I've been playing my wrestling game more so than I've been playing any fighting games. Oh, Mila's just breaking up for Tommy. Yeah, let's see. I think fighting game resurgence goes way back to, you could trace it all the way back to Street Fighter 4 back in 2009. So we've been having a good yeah, 15 years plus of just fighting games being, but I don't know, it's been a concentrated effort by these companies. It's like once games went through the whole season and live service model, they don't have to make a new like Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat until every 5 or 6, 7 years. So we're gonna be playing Street Fighter 6 probably up until like, let's see, probably 2028. I think Street Fighter 5 lasted until I think 2015, up until 2023 when Street Fighter 6 came out. Let's see, Tekken 7 went I think from 2017 up until what? Early last year. Let's see, Mortal Kombat 11, I think from 2017 up until holiday of 2023. So yeah, you've been playing these fighting games for 5 or 6 years. Shoot, Street Fighter 6 will be 3 years old, like March of next year, which is crazy. Time is flying, man. Time is flying. I think the funny thing is when you watch the theater mode and you just watch the computer like this fighting yourself, it was like you start to realize like kind of how basic, I guess, kind of I can't really say it's the AI, but really the core of the game, because they are using, I think the only thing they're not using, well, no, the computer uses it. The computer does use it, but not a lot. Like I said, if it was like an Itagaki game where the games are hard, the recent games are easy. But back when the computer would cheat to beat you. But now it's like the games are set on like AI strings. They're set on AI strings. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do for the rest of this evening. I might just pop in some Baldur's Gate 3, but I just wanted to do a live stream. Rest in peace for Tomonobu Itagaki. Talk about some DOA. What time is it right now? 5:49. I think I started this maybe 2 hours ago. But I don't know what's else on my plate as far as live streams. Maybe I could discuss that for a while. I do got some games, like, I know I haven't been as regular as I used to be. Dude, I used to live stream like 4 or 5 times a week. But, you know, real life. And then the fact is just sometimes I just don't feel like live streaming. You know, there's that too. But I'm going to go back to live streaming regularly. There are some games that I bought that I need to play, that I need to beat, that are just on my backlog. I got some, dang. Michael Pax playing some Cyberpunk. So thanks for stopping by, Shinigami. Good to hear from you. I'm gonna call it an evening. Still early in the evening. I'm probably gonna grab something to eat and then probably come back. I might do another live stream. Who knows? My Wi-Fi is good. I should do another live stream. My Wi-Fi is just good. But yeah, you know. Oh, you're about the behavioral cheating CPU. Yeah, cheating CPU back in the day was good. It was good. Like, play some Dead or Alive 4 on the hardest difficulty where it predicted all your shit. Actually, Street Fighter 6 on level 8 is probably the hardest difficulty, AI difficulty ever, in a home console game outside of Mortal Kombat 2, where legitimately did cheat to beat you. Yeah, man, I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'll probably be back on later, live stream a different game. So, you know, you stay safe out there. God bless, bro. Good hearing from you.